a CIC, which is Community Interest Company. So we beg, borrow and steal. All of our speakers, including the lovely Maria, do this out of love, and because they also believe in our vision, which is inclusivity at a sort of senior level within product, within tech, etc. So we're here to serve and to carve out a path to that outcome. That is why we exist. That's why we turn up. That's why we give our free time to create this space, to put on events and to serve the community that we have. We've got about, I don't know the latest numbers, but we've got circa 800 people on the Slack workspace today. Not all of those are active, and we're obviously doing what we can to make sure that that's more of a destination and people can be served no matter where they are in the UK or beyond. So most of our membership are London-based, UK-based, but we've got lots of people in Europe. So you tell us today if you're joining us from outside of the UK, a few people in Africa, Australia, New Zealand, America. And so like I said, our purpose is to make sure that you're getting the tools and the empowerment and the knowledge and the support that you need to imagine how your career can improve, how you can be a part of the decision making every day. We have a lot of volunteers that make that happen, but we're always looking for more because people come and go as they have responsibilities in their work life and in their personal lives. I've sort of I've gone through the spiky end of being a mother with 3 children who no longer need to be put to bed. And so I can do 5 o'clock meetings when I'm finished in my corporate life because I don't have to give them tea. They can feed themselves, which is an absolute miracle when you remember what it was like when you had 3 little toddlers running around demanding food and demanding what have you. So, I know that life can be tricky and people come and go out of the volunteering space all the time. But we're always looking for more people. We've got various teams that we have operating. Meg and the fundraising team, I love saying that, have submitted something today. I don't know the details, but if we get through, it means that we can serve the community even better. We can pay for coaching or mentoring of mentors so that we can be consistent and impactful in the way that we lift up our community. We can maybe pay for speakers rather than assume that they're going to do it for free all the time. So yeah, feel free to join us. I think that we can probably put the link into chat if you are interested in joining, and you can also just follow us on Luma, which I'm assuming you came via today anyway, so you'll always be notified if you follow us on Luma of any new events we've got coming up. We do probably one in-person event a month and multiple events online every month as well. We've got several coming up which I can't remember because I'm menopausal, but if you're interested, go on to Luma. Anything else you want me to say, Catherine?
No, that's about it. Just introduce Maria and we can take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, Maria is one of those people that from day one of meeting her, she has this beautiful, wonderful, effervescent personality, and you just immediately feel drawn to her. And when she said to me, I'm interested in doing a talk for the community, the immediate answer was yes, of course. I think more people should benefit from your advice, your experience, and also get to just see how lovely you are. So yeah, go for it, Maria, and lead us through your wonderful talk.
Gosh, thank you, Bex. I feel really slightly overwhelmed by that introduction. Thank you, Bex.
Oh, sorry, but it's all true.
Thank you, it's very kind. Hi everyone, I'm Maria. So thank you for joining us on your lunch break, and thank you to the female product lead, Bex and Meg, for pinning me down to this one. I've actually been chatting to them about this talk for a little while now. Before we start though, a small confession. I am an introvert who learned to be extroverted for work. So if I look comfortable on your screen, that's 20 years of practice and a ton of prep. And so that's kind of the point of this session, really. Almost nothing I talk about today is something that I am naturally good at. It's stuff that I've had to build specifically and on purpose, and often slightly wobbly at first. So let me tell you a little bit about who I am first. So like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years across a lot of different contexts. And if there's been one thing that's consistent across my career, it's that the teams that I've led have tended to score well for trust and psychological safety. And it wasn't personality, it was deliberate, something I built on purpose. And that's the reason I'm here to speak with you today. Because I have been in rooms where it wasn't safe. I have also watched brilliant people be silenced, and I've seen work done by my amazing colleagues go uncredited. And I've also had my own experiences of what it costs to speak up in a room that hasn't been safe. I'm not here to say, be brave, speak up. I imagine that many of us work in places where we genuinely can't change the weather, although I wish we could perhaps dial it down slightly in London today. The culture above us is set, and one person naming it can be punished for it. So if that's you here with us today, you're not failing. You have read that correctly. So this talk isn't about changing your whole organization, while I wish, sometimes we could, but it is about the thing that you can control, the space immediately around you. And I mean that practically. So not just philosophically, I can't say that word, philosophically, not just the don't move your one-to-ones advice, though I would recommend that too. I mean the choices that you make inside those conversations, because sometimes there are no good choices. So you do the best that you can with what you have in the space that you're in. And that's where the 5 practices that I'm sharing today live. All right, let's start with a feeling, not the definition. So I would like you to think about a time at work, a meeting, a one-to-one, a project, get together, where you didn't have to calculate before you spoke. So where you could say, I don't know, and it wasn't filed away to be used against you later. Where you could disagree without being shamed or humiliated. And now the opposite. The room where you run every sentence through 15 filters before you speak, where you bring the edited and self-protecting version of yourself. Now, because I'm slightly obsessed with words, I would love for you to put something in the chat. One word for how it feels in a room where you don't need to edit yourself, and one for when you did. I'm happy to start. So the word that I would use for unsafe rooms that I've been in is exhausting. And the word that I would use for the opposite is energizing, because I'm not masking or performing. I love that. Creative, fearful, warm, uncomfortable, scared, happy. Thank you for sharing. What I want to say is your body knows the difference. You don't need me to define it. And so what I'd like to do with you today is help make the energizing version something that you can build deliberately. So we have to talk about the definition, because of course we do. So the person who has researched this for decades is Amy Edmondson. So her definition is the academic version. It's a shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. So speaking up on questions, concerns, mistakes, or dissent without the fear of humiliation or punishment. So I've written up a bit of a working frame. It's a bit simpler and very much to do around one of Female Product Lead's themes for this year, voice. And so my working frame is that psychological safety is the condition that makes voice possible. So I believe that building safety is an act of power. It means using the power that you have to make it easier for someone else to speak. Safety is not the absence of standards. It's not everyone being nice. It's not necessarily being comfortable either. Some of the most psychological safe teams that I've led were also the most direct and the most challenging. And they were also the highest performing. Safety isn't the opposite of performance. It's what lets performance scale without your people breaking. All right, so here's a myth that I want to dispel. We assume, maybe that's me actually, I did have an assumption earlier in my career, that some leaders just have it. They're warm, they're approachable, and people around them just open up to them naturally. And the implication was that if you're not that person, you can't build it. So I don't know about you, but I don't buy that. I have led teams that scored highly for trust and safety, and I've had to work really hard for every bit of that. I'm a neurodivergent introvert who finds walking into rooms really difficult, and I overthink almost every interaction I have. So none of this is something that comes naturally to me, but it was something that I needed for my work. So I needed to build the skill anyway. Safety isn't who you are. It's what you do repeatedly. I think I've managed to get it down to 5 specific things that you can do, that if you do them consistently and pay attention to what's working, and then that eventually becomes your culture. So a bit of the why. So I grew up in a conservative household where at 15, the path was laid out for me. And that was marriage, not education, not a career. And my mum fought her own family so that I could stay in school. She used her voice to change the direction of my life. And it cost her family and her community. I practiced this. I didn't think I was going to get as emotional saying it out loud, but yeah.
You got this, Maria. Keep going, my love.
So I learned early on that voice has consequences. What that taught me was that I learned who gets listened to, who's expected to stay quiet, and what it can cost you to challenge the path set out for you. And that is why psychological safety matters to me personally. Not as theory, but as a condition for people to have more choice, more truth, and more room to become who they're capable of becoming. All right, moving away out of the emotional side, why this matters, the business case. So Google ran a 2-year study, Project Aristotle. It was across more than 180 teams to find out what actually made the great ones great. And psychological safety was the single strongest predictor of team effectiveness. And those teams were rated twice as effective as often by their own execs. Now, I don't know about anybody else in the room, but big tech and Silicon Valley isn't really my world or anything that I am likely to be a part of. So I am naturally skeptical of anything that comes out of that world just because it doesn't match my reality. But it is a pretty hard finding to ignore. So there's another piece of research, the DORA research, which is the state of DevOps work that a lot of engineering organization run on. They found that psychological safety predicts software delivery and organizational performance, which was replicated beyond one company. And it goes back to Amy's original research that she did in 1999, hospital research, which was where better teams reported more errors, not fewer. And it was because it was safe to. So safety is what lets a team see its own reality. You can't fix what you can't see. So I think the evidence is consistent. Safe teams perform better because they surface problems earlier, they challenge assumptions, and ultimately they learn faster. So safety isn't separate from performance. It's one of those things that makes high performance possible. So how do you build it? So here are 5 practices to make voice possible. So permission, go first. 2, trust, know when to listen and when to act. 3, access, remove barriers to participation. 4, reality, and I did enjoy that I've put like a VR case on this one, icon. Make space for uncomfortable truths. And then the last one, 5, influence, redistribute influence. I'm going to go through all of these in a moment, one by one. I just want to add here that I also ran a small anonymous survey before pulling this talk together. And that was with people across my career, mostly product, tech, and adjacent roles. And I asked them 3 things: when they felt safe to speak, when they went quiet instead, and also what it cost them. And I'm going to be sharing some of their stories as we continue. As for now, as we go through each of these, keep a number in your head. Which one does your team most need from you right now? And I would like to ask you to do something differently, something that I struggle to do, which is don't overthink it, and trust the one that immediately comes to mind. So practice 1, go first. I have spent a lot of my career joining teams mid-turbulence, usually mid-restructure, and I've been brought in to help steady a team while everything around them kept moving. And the instinct is to act like everything is fine. But I don't do that because they can tell that it's not true. And the moment they catch you performing certainty that you don't have, you have lost them. So I go first with the honest version, which is I can't promise you what happens above us. I don't control that. I can't control that. But here's what we can control. And here's what I'm not sure about yet. When you go first, when the person with the most perceived power in the room is the first to say, I don't know, it tells everyone that it's safer to stop pretending to. Safety is reciprocal. People open up when they watch you do it, or certainly feel it can if they wanted to. In my survey, almost everyone said the same thing, that the place that they felt safest was either mostly a one-to-one with a manager who'd made it clear that they could say exactly how they felt without it being held against them. And one person said it was the only time they felt safe at work. And that's where this starts, in the small repeated moments where you go first. Right, and the other part of this I would add is keep the promise. Don't offer someone a safe space and then punish them for using it. That's the quickest way to destroy safety, faster than never offering it at all. I know just how fragile this can be. So a few years ago, I raised a concern about a manager, actually. I took it to someone who had also been my manager, someone I trusted. And I was told that I was the only one struggling, even though I knew for a fact that others were struggling with exactly the same thing. It made me doubt myself, and I was told that the problem was my resilience. And for a while, for a long time actually, I wondered whether I was even cut out for a job that I loved doing for years. And the things that I shared in confidence came back as something that was held against me openly in front of others. And so I learned the lesson that when you take a concern to someone and that's the cost, you don't take anything to them again. You go quiet. And when people learn that it isn't safe, they do stop. And the loss isn't just trust, it's the team's access to reality. The moment that people stop telling you what's really happening, you're no longer leading the team that you think you have, you're leading the version they're willing to show you. All right, practice 2, trust. All right. Confession. I am an eldest daughter. My entire operating system is fix. So somebody brings me a problem and my brain has 23 solutions before they've even finished their sentence. And for years, I thought that was me being helpful. And it took me a long time to realize that sometimes people aren't asking you to solve the problem. They want to be heard. And in my rush to help, I had taken the problem off them and made it mine. So now one thing that I do is quite literally ask, do you want to vent or do you want some advice? It sounds almost too simple, but that's something that's really helped me. And there is another side to this. In my survey, a couple of people had told me that they had been listened to, but only for nothing to change afterwards. One person has said they're open to listen, but there's no chance of change. So listening creates trust, but most people don't need the problem to be solved on the spot. They need to be heard and also to know what's happening next. Listening isn't the same as action. If you've promised action, close the loop so people can see it. All righty. Practice 3, access. Remove barriers to participation. People can't contribute if they can't reach the conversation. So earlier in my career, I worked with engineering leaders who used technical language like it was a wall, deliberately to keep other people at arm's length. It felt as if making things harder to understand somehow made them feel more important. And I remember sitting in those rooms watching people just stop trying to contribute because they couldn't get a word in past the jargon. I would add that the people speaking the most weren't adding the most value. They were just the ones that everyone could hear. Exclusion doesn't have to be intentional to do damage. When people can't access the conversation, you lose their contribution. In my survey, someone described a senior colleague who'd dismissed their work as too structured, not because the work was wrong, but because they didn't like the way that it was presented. And the criticism was always delivered in private where it couldn't be questioned. And that's a barrier too. Some barriers are built with jargon and others with vague, subjective criticism that makes people second guess themselves before they can contribute. One thing that you could do next week when somebody uses jargon, acronyms, or specialist language, ask them to explain it as if the room is hearing it for the first time. Plain language isn't dumbing things down, it's accessibility. It's making participation possible. Plain language is the difference between a room that invites people in and one that quietly keeps them out. Practice number 4, reality. Make space for uncomfortable information. So a few years ago, I was asked to sign off on something that I did not agree with for many, many reasons. It would have been much easier to say yes, and there was a lot of pressure to say yes. But I didn't think it was the right thing to do then, and I don't think it was the right thing to do now. So I kept saying, I don't think we should be doing this, until the decision changed. That's the thing about reality. You only get access to it if people feel safe enough to tell you the truth. When they don't, people start managing perceptions instead of surfacing reality. They hide uncertainty, they downplay risks, they avoid asking for help because they've learned that being wrong, changing their mind, or raising a concern comes with a cost. One person in my survey said that what made collaboration feel safe wasn't agreement, it was knowing that asking for help, admitting uncertainty, or flagging a problem wouldn't be treated as poor performance. So when people stop bringing you what they know, the risks don't disappear, your visibility into them does. So when somebody brings you something that you don't want to hear, what matters most is what happens next. I would invite you to thank them for it and make sure it doesn't cost them. Our job as leaders isn't to create certainty, it's to create the conditions where people surface the inconvenient thing early enough so that we can still do something about it. Practice 5, influence. Redistribute it. Being heard isn't the same as having influence. Whose voice actually shapes the decision? The people speaking the most aren't always contributing the most. The ideas are there. The room just isn't built for everyone to share them. I would like to invite you to watch who gets interrupted, who gets deferred to, and who goes quiet when a louder or more senior voice arrives. In my survey, someone said a lot of loud voices that don't allow anyone else to speak. It's like only they exist. Another person told me that a 20-person meeting was almost impossible for them because of social anxiety. It was the structure of it itself that shut them out. Systems tend to be built around the people who already know how to navigate them, and your meeting is a system too. So ask yourself, who is it built for? And who does it actually give influence to? One of the best things that I've ever done is bring customer support into some of our product ceremonies. They are the people who are talking to frustrated customers every day. They hold part of the truth about the product, yet they are often excluded from the decisions that shape it. They already have the knowledge. What they're missing is the influence. So what could you do next week? Invite input without putting someone on the spot. So name the process, not the person. Something like, let's hear a couple more voices. And then when a decision needs to be made, don't let influence default to whoever speaks first, loudest, or with the most senior title. Going back to what I said earlier, safety is an act of power, and power in a room is often invisible to the people who hold it. So your job as a leader is to notice who has influence and who doesn't, and redistribute that. Before we get to the audit, let's spend just a moment on the cost. Because I asked people in my survey about, whether their experience of safety or its absence had showed up how they show up outside of work. And one person shared that being in an unsafe team had made them hold back from their own friends and their family. And they had less interest in doing things, less willingness to have any type of conflict anywhere. This is a cost. It doesn't stay at work, it follows people home. It changes how people speak, what they share, and how much of themselves they bring to the world. All right, so what can we do about this? So here are some questions which make up the audit to figure out, whether what we're doing is working. And this is the thing that I've actually built something interactive that you can take away, and it's something that you can do on the train or on your commute. Ask yourself these questions. There's a space to add your notes to really reflect on some of these questions. So don't ask your team whether, they feel safe. Look for the signals. So the first one, permission. When was the last time somebody told you something you didn't want to hear? Question 2, trust. What happened the last time someone raised a problem with you? 3, access. Whose style, background, or way of working is different? And what might they be holding back? Question 4, reality. When something went wrong, what did your team try to understand first? And then the final question in the audit, influence. Who speaks the most and who speaks the least? And whose views actually shape the decision that needs to be made? I'm going to come back to all of these in a moment when I share the safety audit tool that I've built for everybody attending today. But I'm going to end this talk about the most important feedback that I've ever had. And it wasn't about my work, and it wasn't even about me. So at my mum's funeral, a cousin I hadn't seen in years told me, no matter what drama was happening in the family, I knew that I could come to your house because I was always welcome. Your mum made time for me. She listened. She made me feel important. It's the only thing that I remember from that day. And it's become the standard that I hold myself to. Not what I deliver, but whether the people around me feel seen and safe enough to be themselves. Because that is what psychological safety actually is. It's not a vibe. It's a set of practices that make voice possible. You don't need permission from the top to start. You sometimes can't change the weather, but you can build the microclimate, one conversation at a time. All right, and so if you are interested in learning more about this topic, here are some articles and books that I've been reading recently, and some of the things that have been shaping my thinking. I'm always learning, always curious to find out how other people are talking about these topics and the things that they are doing to build psychological safety in their spaces and places. I would also add that as AI is taking over a lot of the execution part of our roles, a lot of the delivery, it's the human part, which is the bit that we have the most influence over shaping. The humility, the empathy, the showing up for other people. And so that's what I would like to leave you with. So as final, thank you for joining me today. If you scan the QR code, you will get access to the interactive safety audit. It also has a one-page summary of the 5 practices and a short checklist that you can run through. So when you scan the QR code, you will, I think the first page of it is actually the audit, the interactive version of what we've just been through together. And at the top, you'll see 3 tabs. the audit, the 5 practices, and the meeting checklist. 5 questions for each practice, and you will hopefully recognize them from the slides that we just looked at. The most important thing is to answer it for one specific team or room, not work in general. The more specific you are, the more useful it becomes. Underneath each question, there's a notes field, and you can jot down your notes and thoughts as you go. Nothing is saved or sent anywhere. It stays in your browser, and you can sort of click to print if you would like to. Once you've worked through the questions on the audit, you can hit the show me where to start, and it will identify the signal or signals that feel weakest now with some practical suggestions for what to do about it next. And that is it. Oh, and I will leave you with some reflections for the week. You don't need to write these down, because I will share this deck with Female Product Lead so that you will receive a copy of it. And those reflections are: which practice does my team need most from me? Whose voice am I not hearing? And what behavior am I rewarding without realizing? And there we go. That is all from me. Thank you again to the Female Product Lead for the space and the opportunity to talk about this. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Maria.
Amazing. Thank you, Maria. There's been lots of chat. I don't know if you've seen that.
I've seen bits coming up.
Yeah,
One thing I would just add is I am by no means any expert on this, but I would be very happy to chat to people. If you send me a note, a message on LinkedIn, or join the Female Product Lead community, and we can chat in the Slack channel.
Oh, was that for questions or put it? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's for questions, but I think people...
So also ask questions of Maria in chat, or feel free to take yourself off of mute and show us your lovely faces if you've got any questions or thoughts following on from the thought-provoking talk. Catherine shared the Slido, so this is really for us to be able to measure impact. So I mentioned earlier we're a CIC, not for profit. We have to report back to the government, like Companies House, somebody like that, at the end of the year, to tell them the impact that we're having, and feedback from people who attend our events, and the impact of the content that we're presenting for you is really, really useful to help us to understand the impact that we're having. So please feel free. Oh, look, people are typing already. I've never seen that. Oh, look at that, it's working. We're getting feedback, Meg. Look at that.
Oh!
Love it. Feedback's a gift, as I tell my husband every single day. He doesn't believe me though, obviously. So yeah, I mean, one of the things, we haven't got a couple of questions coming in, but one of the things that I'm so many takeaways, I'm not going to be able to think of all of them. But that whole piece around sort of redistributing, I think that's the phrase you used, influence. I love that. Like, it's sort of, Meg was sort of thinking about it in terms of allyship and support, but I just think that's a really key thought. It's just got my brain ticking away in terms of, it's so easy in time poor world that we live in. You've got like an update with a team like half an hour, where you probably sidestep that and don't, especially as a leader, you don't always take time to make sure that you are actively doing that. So yeah, I find that a really interesting challenge. I love that.
Yeah, it's sometimes you hear some of this if people feel safe enough to have that conversation with you in one-to-one, but I think the other is just when you're watching sort of teams, the way that they interact with each other, and sort of sometimes you're in a room and the conversation is going, and then somebody walks in and then everything goes quiet and you're like, what just happened? And so as somebody who is, it's something that is a big part of my role, is to make sure that I enable everybody in my team to be able to contribute to the best of their ability, and make sure that they have a voice in sharing and shaping what we're doing. And yeah, it's something that I think we are all too busy, but it's something as leaders I think we need to make the space for, to be deliberate about. I'm just going through and like reading some of the comments now. Some great comments here. And yeah, I think I nearly cried twice.
I mean, honey, it's fine. You're authentic and real. I love the fact that you brought that to this talk, because otherwise, like, I mean, what a great influence to do that. Like, I'm sure no one disagrees with me. I want to give you a big hug, though.
Maria, it was so refreshing for you to show up so open and grounded that you can be truly yourself in front of us. Thank you.
I would also like to add that, you know, some of the experiences that I've been talking about today have been sort of dotted around my previous career sort of experience, and I'm in a very, very different space now. I am in a place where I feel energized and inspired, and it's part of the reason why I felt, you know, why sharing myself like this was possible today, is because of the workplace that I'm part of today.
I have a question. Being someone who is I'm quite loud, or can be quite loud in group settings or even in one-to-ones, meaning I talk too much or overtake others. But it has most to do with my neurotype and how I pay attention, is by involving myself in the conversation or reacting. But sometimes those things can be misunderstood, as well as like that I don't want to hear what the other person has to say. There might not be very many others on the call that are like that as well, but as someone who I have actually been told that I don't listen many times when I'm trying so incredibly hard to listen. How can do you have any advice for how I can model the actual intention of the psychological safety I am genuinely trying to create for others, even when my attention struggles like tend to make me speak up more?
I think the first place is, you know, the self-awareness, which clearly you have. The other thing that I would say, one of the ways, so it was interesting in my survey where, and this is somebody that I used to line manage actually, and they are doing so well now, and I'm so happy for them. And one of the things that they shared with me was about, you know, being in this room where, you know, there's like 20 odd people, and you know, he's just feeling anxious in those spaces. Now, there's not a lot that sort of I can, you know, everybody has their own journey with, you know, social anxiety. What I would say is offer more than one way to contribute. And that means that you then aren't missing out on perhaps people who only feel comfortable speaking up in a room. Some people prefer to write things down. So give them, like, you know, create a Miro board, or start you know, a document that people can kind of start to add their contributions, so that their voice doesn't get lost in whatever else is happening.
I think there was a question, that's a great answer. Sorry, I think there was a question on the Slido around size of teams.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you can see if you can find it. I think it was maybe further down.
I can't, yeah, here's somebody.
Sorry, Catherine, to make you do tech stuff in this heat. It was something around like how does it show up in different sized teams? I think. I don't know if the person who asked that is willing to help us out if Catherine can't find it, or if they haven't left.
No, I can't see any person on Slido. Strange.
Oh, sweetheart, sorry, I shouldn't have put you on the spot. I think trying to do it from memory. So the question was asking, how can you affect or create psychological safety? There you go. Thank you, Elle. There she's put it for us. That's so kind. Thanks. So there you go. I got some of it. Psychological safety, different size teams. There you go. Can you read that, Maria?
Is it the what do you do when you're having
sorry,
a hard
it's in
time
the chat. So I'll read it
in
out.
the chat,
Psychological
sorry.
safety. How would you classify it for different size teams? Teams in different states at this point. How does it evolve?
I think that's a tricky word. I mean, as a typical product person, I'm going to say it depends, because it does depend on the people that you have in those teams. And so, again, it is being deliberate about the activities that you design for how those people work together and how they show up and contribute in the room. And one example that I could give about that topic specifically is I work for an agency at the moment. I don't know why I said at the moment. I work for an agency right now, and it's the first time in my career that I'm working agency side versus in-house. And while I was in between projects, I had the opportunity to help shape our offsite. And one of the things that I did was be deliberate, because I know that everybody is in their own client spaces doing things in their own way, and they're at different stages of life cycle, different contexts that they're working in. So it's like, how do we design an exercise that helps this kind of, very different group of people connect, have meaningful conversations on the day, and then take that away with them so that they feel that we have an identity, or we're starting to build our identity and our sense of community and what our vision and mission looks like. So it does take a deliberate sort of design of the activities that you want the people in the room to contribute to.
Yeah, cool.
Does that help? I mean, I'm happy to sort of, like I say, have this conversation in the female product lead chat, Slack chat, or sort of, I do mentoring, so happy to sort of have a mentoring conversation if there's something specific that you perhaps would like help navigating. I'd be very happy to.
You signed up to be a mentor for FPL recently as well. Thank you for that, Maria. It's amazing. So there's another one that's coming up here, which is around like if you're having a hard time because you're the loudest in the room. I wish I could say I don't know what that feels like, but I totally agree. So it's something that you feel like you could answer that question on screen.
The one that how can you help to create a safety?
No. So it's like, what do you do when you know you're having a hard time because you're the one being the loudest in the room?
The loudest. I think that's similar to Meg's question, right?
Yes, I think so too.
Yeah. So I think that what I would try is offering different ways to contribute. So Miro board, even a small group Slack channel, or even a Word document. Like, it doesn't need to be fancy. It just needs to be a way that you can connect people to sort of allow them to share their thoughts and comments and contributions. Yeah. One thing actually that I have found recently does help is actually a blank page isn't that helpful as a starting point. give people prompts in terms of, this is the sort of shape of what I'm thinking, and then that allows people to go, oh no, or oh yes, I can see it, and how we can shape it and how we can build on this, and what you mean when you say that.
Yeah, it definitely works for us as a core team at Female Product Leads. Like Meg and I are so opinionated and ready to speak. So the best way we found to include everybody's voice is to put ourselves on mute and open up a Miro and go through our lives. So this is a great question. If people above you are open to it, so this is something that always comes up in conversations. If you're a leader, then how do you create psychological safety? That's, you know, brilliant advice that you've created. But how do you apply that if you're the one trying to influence change with people above you? So it's a really, really pertinent question, I think. And you see that on the screen now, right? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I think there are many different ways, and actually it, you know, talked a lot about sort of the culture is set at the top, and so I think having a core group of people to work with, so that they are also, so it's not one person doing it alone, there's a team of you who are, so, you know, it's like the trainers, and you have like ambassadors for certain things in certain workplaces. So you could have, like, you know, psychological safety ambassadors, for example. And then and I would also say having like the specific things of what good looks like and what you don't tolerate as well. So those are a few places where I would start with that.
Cool. Thank you, Maria. So the Slido link you can carry on contributing to. If you've got conversation that you want to carry on, like Maria said, you know, feel free to tap us up on the Female Product Lead. Super easy to find. Just go to femaleproductlead.com and then click on join. It's a really simple onboarding form that just basically helps us capture who you are and where you're at in your product journey and your career journey and what you're particularly looking for. So feel free to do that. It just leaves me to thank you, Maria. I'm so glad we had that random chat outside of Salesforce, where you said to me that you wanted to do this talk. I think how you've presented it and the way that you've talked us through some sort of 5 key areas to pick up on, I think is really, really key. Are you able to share the slide deck so that we can send it on to participants? Brilliant.
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Cool. We should be able to find people's emails and forward that on. Yeah. I hope. Tech eludes me sometimes with how we do this stuff, but I'm sure we'll figure it out. Thank you so much, Maria, and thank you, Catherine, for being our wonderful moderator again. Could not do this without you. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.